Welcome back to another episode of the For All Stages and Ages podcast. We are really glad that you've come to join us. Today, we've got a guest with us, Matt Shamloo. Matt is someone that we've not actually had on the show before and talking about a topic that we've not discussed on the show before either. So Matt is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts expert. And I've brought Matt on the show to have a chat with everyone about the benefits, the health benefits, the psychological benefits for children around MMA and everything to do with these disciplines. So welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and MMA and the Jiu-Jitsu and how you sort of got started in it?
Sure. So thank you, and thank you for having me. So
Absolute pleasure.
My journey began, it definitely was as a child, but I didn't learn to take it seriously up until my teenage years when I really needed it. So I was put into karate when I was 6 years old. And it was one of those things where it just felt like an obligation because my mother had put me in there. And then I went because I had friends that were going there. And it was at that time, especially with traditional martial arts, it was one of those things where kids would progress in belts. And then I started seeing people that I didn't necessarily get along with progress faster than I was. So it kept me going and it made me want to either get to their level or more. It was just one of those things where I was picked on as a child. And it was definitely, as I got older, something I appreciated more. As I got into high school or 10th grade, when I was 15, 16 years old, I realized that I was not bigger than most of the people in my school anymore. And it was one of those things where I was picked on. And it was hard to make friends. But I remember this at the time, martial arts was becoming popular. So I'm like, you know what? Let me give this another shot. Let me try this out again. And I go to the same place I was going to. And they went from a traditional background to a little bit more of a modern background. Still with a little bit of tradition in there. And I really enjoyed it. It was something I was really grasping. It was something that I was like, this is really enjoyable. This is fun. This is good exercise for me. Because at the time I was also somebody who wasn't exercising on a regular basis. So having that ability to do something I really like, like get in shape, to have something to focus on, it was definitely a very big distraction, especially at that age where I'm 15, 16 years old. And since then, it really never stopped for the most part. When I went to college, switched over to another place, and I was there for a few years. And then when I finished college, I had that transitional period where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And once I really got my feet settled, I found a place, stuck with it, and always wanted to give back. And there's a whole lot more I could go into it when it comes to teaching and how I got started with teaching. I don't know if you want to go over that now or a little bit later, but I'll give you a short sample. My mother, growing up, had a home daycare. Okay. And she always loved having me help out the kids, maybe because it was free, but it was very helpful because it made me really understand children more and more patient with kids. And it made my process working with children so much easier. And I'm very grateful for that because I don't think if I had that background in childcare, I would not be as fluent as I am now helping kids and adults.
Yeah. And with the movement into teaching, going from obviously being a student and obviously going from being sort of an expert into teaching, have you noticed that there's more, is it more boy-centered or do you get a mix? Is it more, because I think obviously I'm in the UK, but especially over here, we've started to get more girls involved in the sport now. Do you find that predominantly it's still mainly boys that come into it, or is it fairly even?
Yes, I've been noticing more girls coming in, and my next answer, I think, might shock some people, is their understanding. At a certain age, between the ages of, honestly, at that just child age where they start as young as 4 and to as old as 12, they pick it up so much faster where they're sponges for knowledge. And it's enjoyable to watch because they make you look so good as a coach. Like, oh, that's partially made. We have, well, one of the places that I work at, we have girls between the ages of 5 and 14, and the transformation that they've made, the confidence that they've had, the abilities that they had that they never thought they could have. It's very infinite. And I love that because there's a lot of girls in my life. I have sisters, I have nieces, and I'm probably the type of person that if I had children, it'd probably be daughters. But it's nice to see because when more join, it just makes more join. I think they call it the snowball effect, and it's a good time to see. I do believe it's easier to coach girls than it is to coach boys because the girls behave so much better than the boys.
Yeah.
But it's definitely very enjoyable for me. And yeah, really, I'm noticing there is a growth. Is it going to be equal anytime soon as far as many boys and girls? Probably not. But that number is still going to increase. It's not abnormal to see a class where there's at least 10 to 20% girls. That number can really fluctuate depending on the day. But I've seen some classes where there's more girls than boys. It might have been a lighter class, but I definitely have seen it. I've seen it where I have a friend who has 3 daughters and they're all in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I see the benefit of it. I see the appeal for it. I see the demand for it. And I also think there's a good place for it too. I would say the majority of very good, reputable facilities have a great kids program where there is a good mix of boys and girls. In the beginning, there might be that one girl that sticks around, but that one girl that sticks around is going to inspire other girls. And even in the adult program, where when I started my adult program, there were 2 women that they were the only women in the program, and it brought them to become friends because they were, okay, it's us. But they've also learned to get along with the whole group. And between getting along with the whole group and having their own girl bond, it allows the program to grow even more to a culture that's like, hey, I'm not going to be the only girl here. There's people who are just like me. There's people who I can connect with. But then there's other people who are different, but who I also connect with. So you have the best of multiple situations.
Yeah. Have you found that because I know we in the UK we've had I'm assuming you've heard of the Cobra Kai, the spin-off from the Karate Kid movies, which was huge over here in the UK. And I think we had a lot of children that were getting into karate, obviously specifically, but also MMA and Jiu-Jitsu from that show, because I think it kind of brought a new audience and a kind of a new sort of coolness to that sort of that area. Have you found that made a difference with any of the children?
I never actually watched the show, but I'm also not the best.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I'm not the best with movies or TV shows. I'm pretty bad at that. But one thing I will say is I believe that in today's world, you see a lot of women who are professionally at their peak, physically performing at a level that is higher than expected at one point. And I think between modern health, modern exercise, and really just, I think right now we're just crushing past limited beliefs of what humans can do, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. And what I've noticed with women is women are pretty much doing everything that men can do. And what's nice is the following is starting to increase as well. What I love doing is whenever I have a new student, I love connecting them with somebody who not necessarily looks like them, because that's always going to be very difficult, but somebody who might have a personality or someone who might have a similar life stage. That's why I love the name of your podcast, like life, because I think what connects people is life stages, because each life stage has their own personal difficulty. It might be one of those things where you feel alone, and you can find 2 20-year-old people in completely different life stages. I'm a 31-year-old person who's running a business, who loves to travel, who loves to help other people. But then there's other 31-year-olds who have 4 children, and their goal is to be a parent. And there's nothing wrong with either or. It's just a very different life stage at the same age. Yeah. So what I've noticed is I've had a mom and I've had a girl that's right out of college as some of my students. They'll connect on being new. They will connect on being women. They'll connect on the women's struggles. I feel like all you need is one thing to become friends with somebody or get along with somebody for. And it's pretty easy to find that in sports like this because men and women both, whether it doesn't even matter what the gender is, there's going to be things that we all have in common. And I noticed that I think one of the best things that ever brought people together from today's internet world is like memes, because those memes are meant to create a joke where other people can be like, well, I understand this, or this connected with me. And there's a lot of that type of opportunity to connect with martial arts. So I've noticed it, to answer your question again, I've noticed a big increase in female interest. I don't think it's stopping. I have no problem with it as it keeps growing. I encourage it. And it's one of those things where it's just fun. It just makes the class fun. I think girls add another element to it. It definitely makes my job a little bit more fun, because sometimes I'll see boys just running around and causing trouble. And then there's a cute little 5-year-old girl who's like, Professor, can I do this? And I'm like, because usually sometimes I'll have to put on like a few different faces for the kids class. So sometimes I'm funny, sometimes I'm strict, sometimes I have to be firm, sometimes I have to be very focused. And then sometimes you have the new girl that comes in who's just so sweet. And then she'll ask a very polite, innocent question. And then my serious face will be like this. So it definitely lightens the mood. So I love having that dynamic, because if it's all, I'm sure parents will probably connect with this, a house full of boys versus a house full of girls versus a house full of boys and girls can be very different houses.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a 5-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl, and the 10-year-old girl in comparison with my 5-year-old boy when she was 5 is just completely different. Like, she would be quite happy sitting down coloring for hours, whereas my 5-year-old boy wants to kind of go out and jump on things and wrestle, and he's very active, and they're just completely separate, so you can see the differences. But I wanted to ask about the classes as well. You mentioned about sort of going into sort of the fun sort of element of the classes. When you talk about modern mixed martial arts for children, what does that kind of mean in practice? What does a typical class for a child differ from how an adult class might be, or a traditional martial arts class? Like, obviously you mentioned about making it a little bit more fun. Is there anything else that you do with the children that would differ with an adult class?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do with the kids class specifically is we have an early routine. And I learned this at the first school I was really practicing at. Before we even get into techniques or any sort of drilling or practice or exercise, we all sit down and we talk about the rules that we have. And the rules that we have are very justifiable, fair rules, where we talk about yourself. And I learned this when I was in, what do they call it in the UK? Is it secondary school? When you're
we've got like high school, which is secondary. So that's from ages 11 up to when they leave. Anything before that is primary.
Okay. So in primary school, I remember we had 4 rules, and those 4 rules, and along with the school I had in secondary school. So the rules I had were just 2 ways, just the 4 rules that I learned from primary school and the 2 rules I learned from secondary school. I'll tell you all 6. Respect yourself. So we talk about being clean. We talk about, making sure that you're wearing clean clothes. So this way you're somebody that people want to be around. And I always make the joke. I'm like, do you guys want to be the stinky person? Like, if I didn't brush my teeth for a week, would you want to be around me? Respect each other. And I emphasize this one because that's another thing that helps is not that I don't have a filter with them, but I do tell them the truth. And I tell them, out of everyone here, there's going to be somebody who might annoy you. There's going to be somebody here who you might be jealous of at some point. There's going to be someone here that they beat you and you get angry and you want to beat them. Okay to feel that way. It's not a horrible thing to feel that way. It's going to happen. It happened with me. It happened with all the other kids that I've worked with, but you still need to be respectful of them. Sometimes you'll be upset, but as you get older, we're going to have emotions that are very heavy, but it doesn't give us a right to be disrespectful towards somebody. And that's one thing I want them to understand is there's going to be times where your expectations don't meet the reality that's happening. And it's going to happen for everybody. But to be able to still be respectful, to still be able to be calm. And that's really the first step I really have for kids being calm, because if I'm sure we've all seen children, there are certain children out there that they don't get what they want, they'll let the whole world know that they're not getting what they want. And I don't want them to be like that. I want them to be able to solve their problems, or to be able to try and solve their problems. And sometimes certain motivations are better than others, but giving the children the idea to, or giving them the understanding that, hey, not everything is going to go the way I want it to go. Not everything is going to be set up in the way that I want it to be set up. I got to make this work. And that's really that's something I grew up being taught, is you're a puzzle piece in this world that is a huge puzzle, but you got to find out where you're going to fit. I'm not going to tell you where you're going to fit. You have to figure it out yourself. Use the tools you have, use the connections you have. How can you really work your way to where you want to be? And I think that's why respecting other people is a good step, because I'd be lying to you if I said every time I teach a class, the kids all get along. Something always happens. It's something, this person cheated, this person, it's not fair, this person bigger. There's always something, but I need them to understand that might be the case, but you still have to do it anyway. The world's not going to stop. I want them to be able to have that ability to think for themselves. The other rule I have is to respect the environment. And I want to teach them this because at the end of the day, we can create a life that we really want, but to create a life that we really want, we do need some help. I tell them when they come into this place, I want you to treat this place like it's your home. Are you going to destroy your home? Are you going to be good to your home? If you drop something in your home, are you going to pick it up? You're going to wait for mom to pick it up. Because mom's not here. So if mom's not here, who's going to pick it up? I'm not going to pick it up. So maybe it's best that you pick it up. So I really want them to understand what it's like to take care of something that they really enjoy. So this is a space where I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel heard. I want them to feel comfortable. And for this to be a space like that, let's keep it clean. Let's take care of it. So that's another thing that I want to teach them. And then finally, this kind of resorts back to rule number 2 is treat others the way that you want to be treated. Yeah. And I still think that's that when growing up in primary school, that was the golden rule. I still believe it. And I like to joke with them a lot too. I go, if I push him around, if I'm mean to him, he's going to be nice to me, right? And they're all like, no. Well, I want it to be that clear that if I'm mean to somebody or if I'm yelling at somebody, that it's asinine for me to expect them to be very polite with me. So I want them to realize if I'm polite, it will increase the chances of them being polite. But I think that also gives them the opportunity to make friends with people too. Because I think that's another thing that, unfortunately, some children don't really have, because maybe it's COVID, maybe it's other reasons, or maybe it's just limitations, but that ability to make a friend, the ability to have the courage to talk to somebody and just not just be friends with the people that they're next to out of activities. Like, I want to give them that courage to do something. And then the other 2 rules that I learned in secondary school was try your best and be respectful. And I think that covers everything, because trying your best, there's nothing more you can ask for. And I think giving the kids a standard to try their best, giving them permission to give themselves permission to try their best, I think that's something that lets kids know where they stand. It gives them the best opportunity for them to just learn and grow. Obviously, we can help them, but there's going to come times where they're on their own. What I love about martial arts is it's like a puzzle where you could probably figure this out yourself. It might take a lot more time. You can ask for help, but there's something very fulfilling, and there's something personally fulfilling when somebody figures out a technique or someone figures out a move where you're like, oh, I got this. That is probably one of the best feelings in the world, because that keeps happening. It's not one of those feelings where you feel it once 5 years ago and then you never feel it again. It's one of those things where got it, you advance, got it, advance, got it. It's always a fresh, feel-good emotion.
Yeah. I think you obviously, with the emotion side of it, that's a really important thing. And it's obviously something we, as kind of parents and educators as well, we focus a lot on, especially nowadays with, you've got the kind of emotional regulation side of it with parenting and educators. We're constantly trying to instill how to manage their emotions, because like children, we know, especially younger children, do have very big emotions and they do find it very difficult to regulate those emotions. How specifically do you think, with regards to MMA, does going through, say, like the belt levels and coming to a class, how would that help a child that may be struggling with their regulation or have difficulties with their emotional sort of processing? What does a class teach them? Obviously, you've got the rules, they come into a class, and what do they learn to build on? How can they build on that will help with that emotional regulation for them going through their life?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I like to give them different scenarios where sometimes in life, and I tell them this, you're going to be in good positions where things work out for you very well. You're going to be in positions where, things aren't necessarily against you, it's just up to what you do. And there's going to be situations where you're not heavily advanced and you don't have the heavy advantage, whether it's a competition, whether it's going to school. So I really want them to understand that there's going to be situations where they might have it really good, where things are easier for them. But then there's also going to be situations where, hey, this is a big problem that we're going to have to solve if we're going to get anything out of this. What's nice about having that competition is you have that win or lose outcome. And sometimes losing is something that kids are not necessarily a fan of. I've seen it plenty of times where if the kid doesn't have it his way, he does get upset. And it's okay. We try to comfort them as best as possible. We try to encourage them. But most importantly, we have them go back to work right away. We don't really want to sit and dwell on the losses. I try to have them continue, because it's all these cliches that we've always heard in the States, where if you fall off the horse, you get back on the horse, you go right back to work. Yeah. I want them to know that there's going to be times, it is guaranteed, that they are going to quote unquote fail. I always love hearing that J.K. Rowling story where, I don't know how old she was when she got her first book deal, but she was always rejected beforehand. I have a coach for my business, and I love his analogy that he gives me is you could set into the GPS where you want to go. You can get the directions of where you want to go. You can have the best sports car, but most likely there's probably going to be traffic at some point in your life when you're driving. Now, just because you have that traffic doesn't mean you turn around and go home. It doesn't mean you stop and you just stay there forever, but you slowly keep going. You slowly keep going. It may not be as fast as you want it to be, but you slowly keep going. You might have a flat tire. You might have to fix the tire. You go back on the road. You keep going to where you want to go. And as long as you keep going to where you want to go, eventually you're going to get to where you want to be. And I know sometimes people might be like, oh, I want to be a millionaire when I grow up. But say they never get to a millionaire. As long as you keep trying, you're going to get closer. All that progress is just going to make you a little bit better. But the goal is to move towards that goal. And there's another quote that I really love. This is the one that probably, I'm going to Google it just to make sure I get it right. Norman Vincent Peale said, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land amongst the stars.
The stars. Yeah.
That's still one of my favorite quotes because
it's a great quote.
I've had a few adult clients where their goal is to lose 20 pounds. They wanted to lose 20 pounds or 10 kilos. They wanted to lose 10 kilos in, I think, 6 months. In 6 months, they lost, I think, like 8 kilos. But then I told them, I go, you lost 8 kilos and you look fantastic. Yeah. That's still a beautiful goal. I'm not upset at all that it wasn't a specific number. So sometimes we might have an expectation that we don't make, but I still want them to be able to appreciate. The other quote is trade expectations for appreciations. And that is something I want the kids to know. And that's something I definitely love the parents to know too. Because that's another thing that definitely something I got to help out too. But for kids to really feel like they're progressing, I think what the belt does, and you were asking about the belt, is it gives them a physical tracker as to how far I've come. Now, the reason why I love the belt system, especially the way I do, because I don't want to promote them too quickly, but I want them to have steady progress. Doesn't need to be fast progress, but steady progress. Is my journey as an adult, I had a very hard time appreciating what I had done. It took me a few years to really process it. I was definitely a late bloomer as far as growth and maturity, but I think it was a gift for me at the end, because one of the coaches I worked with was always telling me, Sometimes people have their head down and they're walking along life. They keep pushing through life, but they have their head down. When they have their head down, they never see how far they've come. They never turn around and see, hey, look how much progress they've made. I want these kids to know how much progress they make. And I think that's what the belt does. And it's just a reminder of, hey, do you remember when you were a white belt? Which is a white belt is the beginner belt for martial arts. And then every martial art has their own different belt path, but different colors represent different levels. But I like to remind the kids of when they were a white belt because it gives them an opportunity to be like, wow, I was once a white belt before. I was once a beginner and now I'm not because I kept going. And I think that's a gift that could travel with them for anything. Anything you try that's new is going to be something that's going to be difficult at first. I love music. I like singing. I like playing guitar. I wasn't good in the beginning. It took me a while to get a sense of everything, but you keep practicing, you keep getting better. When you keep getting better, you start to feel good. When you start to realize how much better you've gotten, it makes you feel even better. And that's momentum that we can climb from.
Yeah. I think having the belt system is like you say, it is just a physical kind of tracker, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's just showing them you've gone from this stage and now you're at this stage. For parents that are maybe thinking about enrolling their children, 2 questions. Is it better for their children to join earlier rather than later? And what is the kind of ideal sort of age for them to start? And then with regards to them actually enrolling, are there any sort of key things that they should look for in a gym or an instructor to make sure that they're getting the kind of the best MMA sort of experience, like for safe, positive and character building experiences?
That's a great question. And there's a few ways to answer this question, because the first question I would ask now, after everything I've learned, I would ask the parent, what is it that you want from your child? What is the result that you're looking for? And I think what happens is there are things that we do, but there are things that we do that we don't really have we don't have a strong enough reason for. So sometimes I've had parents come to me and tell me, listen, my kid's got a lot of energy. I want him to be tired. I've had other parents go, my son has a hard time with confidence and I want him to become more confident. I've had other situations where, hey, my daughter is about to enter middle school. I want her to be able to handle herself. Everybody's raised differently. Everybody has different life circumstances. Everybody has a path that brings them to where they are now. And it's very difficult to help the kids all the same. But there's that, you can always give them the common values that we teach, the common techniques. But everybody's why is always going to be a little bit different just because they're all raised differently. So I do want to learn about the kid as much as possible. Everyone's always going to say, I wish I started earlier, and I actually love this example. My mom tried to put me in when I was 4. And my mom tells me to this day that the head instructor told my mom, no, he's got to wait a few years, because I just wasn't getting it. I wasn't ready for it. I didn't have and I remember I didn't like it. I think I mentioned it before. It wasn't really something I was a big fan of, but they had rejected my mom. Not in a way where they said, your kid's just not allowed to come in here, but they had said, I think it is best if you wait a few years for him to grow up a little bit more. So she brought me back when I was closer to 7. And I think she did right by that, because the stories I've heard when I was 4, 5, 6 are very different than when I was 6, 7, 8, because I know I was a wild kid. I know I was someone that just loved to jump around. I never liked to listen. But when I was older, I started learning. And then as I got older, I started appreciating it more. To answer your question, if I had a kid, I would try to put them in before the age of 7. I definitely think younger, you don't have to put them in before the age of 7. You don't even have to put them in at 7. I don't have a strong opinion on this, because I've seen kids who come in at 10 years old who pick it up so much differently. I've seen kids who pick it up at 4 years old and they're great by the time they're 7. So the goal is really, hey, what is your goal? And also about tips for parents for finding a school. There's a few elements to it. And you really want to figure out what kind of environment you want your children around. So the place I started, it's called Monster Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We're very family-based, where it's not uncommon for parents to get along, parents to help each other's kids. It's just everyone's helping each other in some sort of way. And some people want only that type of atmosphere around their family. And then there's other people who are strict competition. But you have to really ask yourself what it is that you want. What results do you want? Or is this somebody do you want to have it all? Do you want to have your kid develop the confidence and the physical attributes and the competition side? Do you want this competition the only thing that matters? I'm not that person's parent, so I cannot determine, or I should not tell somebody, hey, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, or what you want to do with your child. But I think when you have a clear vision as to what your goals are, what you want for your child, that makes the selection part much easier. Because, well, I think all martial arts schools should do this. I think everyone's first class or the first 2 classes should be a free class where they get a chance to see the atmosphere, to see, hey, is this a fit for my kids? Can I see this working out for my kids? And I think parents should get an idea of it. They should understand what is going on. They should know, hey, my child is in this type of program. Do I think it works? Does my kid think it works? Cool. Wonderful. Let's move forward with it. It's okay if there's a connection. It's okay if there's not a connection. But I think you do want to be honest with and be clear with what it is that you want. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't really look at. I think a lot of people will look at, hey, what's most convenient? What might be the best deal? Or what might look the best as far as the gym aesthetic? But this is something that potentially your children can be in for several years or for a good part of their life. It's not uncommon for a kid to join a place at 5 and be there to college, depending on how long that place has been open for. But if you want that to be that type of place, and I got this advice from camps, like summer camps, whereas there's kids who have been there when they were 5 years old, and there's kids who end up working there when they're in college. It really depends on what kind of environment you want your kids to be in. For me, I personally want to be about 2 things. I want to be about growth because I want the kids to be able to have confidence in themselves, especially in a world where there's so much comparison. But I also want these kids to have family. I want these kids to know, hey, you're not going to be alone in this world. Sometimes the scariest place for a kid to go is school. Sometimes kids can feel the most loneliest at school. And at least when they have that other activity, that activity that they choose to go to or their mom kind of forces them to go to, there's a good chance that you're going to make one friend. And that friend could be the person that is all that matters to you. For me as an adult, I met one of my closest friends through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. For me, it's like I don't even care about having all these other friends in my other areas because I have this one. So I think it just builds a great foundation. And I love quotes. So I know when you talk about, there's a quote, I forgot who wrote it. I'm not sure. Is it Jim Rohn? But if you hang out with 5 millionaires, you'll be the 6th. If you hang out with 5 people who read books, you'll be the 6th. If you hang out with 5 people that like to walk outside, you'll be the 6th. Where if you hang out with people who have goals and people who are respectful or people who take classes on being respectful and people who take classes on becoming better, you're going to be the 6th, most likely. So these are things I would definitely give advice to parents is, if I had to sum it up really quickly, is ask yourself what you want for your child. What is the result you're looking for? And be very clear on it. So, I have kids, I have parents that bring their kids because they have ADHD. Okay. If your kid has ADHD, what result do you want out of this? Is he misbehaving at home? Is he just somebody who wants something that's going to drain his energy? Ask yourself, what is it that you really, really want? And I think that is going to be the best tool to get you to where you want to be, because when you know what you want, it's easier for someone to tell you, oh, this is where you should go.
Yeah. I was going to ask you actually about, you mentioned the ADHD. I was going to ask you about children that have got like additional needs, either that they've got autism, ADHD, or maybe they've got a physical disability as well. Would it hinder them or would it impact them if, for example, a child with autism, they are struggling to maybe do some of the sort of the discipline side of it? Because I know from myself, my little boy is 5, he's got autism, and he struggles with people sort of demanding things of him and telling him what to do. So in a class situation like yours, where maybe the instructor is saying, right, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, he might struggle with that. What would be an alternative for him? Can he still do those sort of classes, and how would you manage that, for example?
There's two ways to go about this. One way is to put him in a separate group where it might be at a different pace. The other group is you're going to have to figure out how you're going to blend in with this, because I have very mixed opinions on this, because I'm very compassionate. This is somebody who has autism or has ADHD. But at the same time, what is the best solution to really help them? Is it to change the whole curriculum? Is it to have a separate program? Or are we giving them a disservice? Should we potentially, and I'll tell you how one of the places I was working at handled it, and I learned this quickly, is you have them go with everybody else.
Yeah.
What better gift can you give to somebody than of growth and development than saying, hey, you're on our team. You're with us. Are you going to be someone that might have a hard time with certain things? Yes, but you're with us, because I want them to feel included. I went to a seminar a few years ago, right before the pandemic. This gentleman, his name was Nick, and he didn't have any legs. He had one arm. He had like 3 fingers. And he was telling us how growing up, his parents didn't make his life easier. And at first you're like, oh, that's kind of harsh. But then at the same time, we want to teach our children to be strong. We don't necessarily need them to be the strong. We don't need them to be Superman, but we want them to be able to say, hey, I can do this. We want them to be able to feel, I can, another quote, teaching them to fish. We want them to be able to fish. We want them to be able to say, hey, I'm good enough to be able to be part of class. I'm good enough to be able to keep taking class. So that is the real goal for it. Now, this goes back to what I had said before. We had to talk about expectations. So what is it? What is the result that we want? And also, this is the other thing. How do you have a timeline for the specific result? Because that's another thing that I definitely think is something that I want to tell all parents. We all want what's best for our kid, but we can't Amazon Prime results like this for children. This is going to be something that it does take a few years, but it just makes them better. If we do have a child with autism, we do have a child with ADHD, we can help them. Martial arts schools are definitely able to help them. I think they're a great solution. But you got to ask yourself, okay, is this a 3-month goal? Because I don't think it's going to be a 3-month goal. This might be several months. This might be a few years, but the juice is worth the squeeze there. In my other industry, my professional video industry, the analogy that I love analogies. So if I keep so there's 2 ways to cook food. You can see right there is my oven, and then right above that oven is a microwave. Food tastes better in the oven, in my opinion, but it takes a little bit longer. The microwave might make it hot quicker, but it doesn't taste the same. So for me, I want the kids to be able to make that progress. And I really think just them making progress is going to make them happier. You know, every little checkpoint, they have an opportunity to just look at themselves and be like, you know what? I'm proud of myself. It might be a little thing, but teaching them to be proud of those little things, I think, is so beneficial. I think that's really the best way we can help guide children to become better. And another analogy, or another quote, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And you could still have those little wins, and those little wins, you can build more momentum.
Yeah. I think what you said about I'm with you. I think that, especially like I say, as a parent of a child that's got autism, I'm very similar to you in terms of my belief in him, that I understand he may have additional struggles as he goes through life, but I don't allow those struggles to kind of stop him or prevent him from doing something. So I think it's doing it sort of a better service to them, to rather than sort of singling them out, or we'll put them over here in this corner. I think it's better to keep them with the main group. This is you're with us. Yes, it might take you a little bit longer to get there. Yes, it might be a little bit harder for you, but you're still part of our team, you're still part of our group. I think that is the better option than them having a sort of a separate group for them. So that's my kind of personal thing. I think it's the better thing to do.
We also don't talk about the other
what they give to the group,
because what I've also noticed, and this isn't every situation, but I've noticed this a lot, is it teaches the other kids compassion and understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
So the reason why I always loved doing this, yes, I had my mom that had a daycare growing up, but I'm the youngest sibling. I'm the baby of the family by a lot. So my brother is 8 years older than me. My sister is 11 years older than me. I always wanted little siblings. I always wanted to be a big brother. and I'm probably not the only person that's thought that too. I have seen several times where the older child or the leader wants to helps the young one. This is how you build leaders, and it starts at this age. It doesn't just happen when you're an adult. This is where you have the kids who are a little bit older, who might be a little bit more of a veteran, where they might see someone who's struggling, where now you have a few things. You have the leaders who will have an opportunity to help somebody, but then you have the kid that's struggling, not being alone and not feeling left out, not feeling like they're neglected. So it helps everybody out now, because now the older person has more compassion for this person. This person now has a love for other people, and there's a sense of belonging in both areas. So that's the other thing that I love, and that's why I don't want to separate the groups. If there's a special case or a rare case, I wouldn't separate them still, but maybe I would say, hey, maybe we do a private class, or maybe we do something. We give them more exercise for the parents to do at home, or maybe we just get them a little bit more involved. But for those rare occurrences, that's something that we can talk about. But just to answer your question, and go back to what we're focusing on, is I think you're doing a disservice if you keep them out of the group. I think you're taking away a lot of growth if you take them out of the group, because at the end of the day, the world still goes on, and we want to teach our kids what is the best way to get through this life. What's the best way to get through this world?
I think that's a really nice note to sort of finish on. So I wanted to say thank you again, Matt, so much for coming on. It's been really interesting to hear how MMA and martial arts can kind of help children with their confidence and obviously their physical side as well. Do you want to just tell people where they can find you, where they can get in touch with you if they're looking for any more information on MMA? And how they can contact you?
Yeah, so right now, Instagram is going to be the best thing for me. So my Instagram is Matt Shamloo, MATTSHAMLOO _ BJJ Right there, I post content pretty much every week, whether it be advice that I would give to kids, advice I give to adults, techniques, fun things, a little bit more about me. That's going to be the best way. I know I'm in the development of a YouTube channel. I know I am doing a few podcasts this week, so there's going to be more content. My brand, as far as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and personal development, just developed a few months ago, and it's just only growing more. But Instagram is definitely the easiest and the quickest way to reach out if you have any questions.
Fantastic. And we will, of course, put Matt's details in the show notes with the links, and when your YouTube channel is up as well, we'll add that as well, if it's not already up. But yeah, thank you again so much for coming on, Matt. It's been really nice to speak to you, and really appreciate you coming on. So thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you all for the next episode on the For All Stages and Ages podcast.